So welcome to our session. I hope you had a great day today so far, enjoying the first part of the conference. We also have a very busy schedule today. We have a lot of demos to show. Tomas and Ievgenii have prepared thoroughly. And yes, so let me introduce those two gentlemen. Tomas is engineering manager for the client runtime team in my workload, and Ievgenii is engineering manager for the client experience team, also in my workload. And today we have a lot of, demos to show you, a lot of, productivity features that we didn't have time to present you in the keynote. And our objective for this session is to maybe let you walk away with a great understanding of how powerful the web client has become in this release. And before we start with the demos, let's remind ourselves what is the Business Central mission for clients. So we have a very, mature and proven interface which runs across devices, both on-premise and cloud. So we have the browser client on the desktop. We have the tablet and phone with the mobile apps. We also have an Outlook client. Actually, in many ways, it's the most demoed client. It is the client that people use in pre-sales a lot. And also have integration with Excel and a ton of other integrations with Power Platform. So write your code once, run everywhere. That has always been the core value proposition of our platform, and now even more so on a modernized stack. So what about Windows client? Well, basically, you should rest assured there is no current impact on the installations that you have for your customers. We will be maintaining the Windows client for basically 4 years. That is our current support lifecycle. It is included in Business Central April 2019 for the last time, and you can still sell this release until 2020. And we're also preparing an FAQ in documentation for helping you to basically think about how to transition to web client, what are the nitty-gritty details about support lifecycle, and so on. So let's take a look at the agenda for today. So we will start with a tour of the consultant journey. And I have shown in Keynote a glimpse of the consultant journey. And now it is time to dive deeply into it and also look under the hood and understand how consultant journey is working in web client. The other part is working smarter with Business Central. I actually touch very little in Keynote, only the save views and multitasking. But we have a ton of productivity features that are intended for heads-down users. So we plan to give you a tour of that as well. We also have a section about developing for modern clients. I think here we aim at two kind of parts. One of them is how to leverage some of the new AI paradigms that come in this release, like the page background tasks, and also give you a glimpse of how you can write modern browser add-ins. And lastly, we will talk about what's next and give you a sneak peek of some of the features that we are working on in the current release. So let's start with modern clients consultant journey. Ievgenii, please tell us how it works.
Voice check, voice check. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Cool.
We can.
I have this magic pen. It works like a clicker. Take a look. Cool. Why does role tailoring matters? Talking about role tailoring. How many of you know our ideas website where we ask you to come here, put your ideas, provide us feedback? Come on, we have ideas website. People go here, put your family, friends, colleagues, cats, dogs, go ahead and put your feedback. So there was a feedback provided. On the first day, we released Business Central, and here's a quote from that feedback. I'll just kind of read for it loud. In NAV, it was possible to configure profiles. In Business Central, it's not there. Are we the only partner who finds this a huge problem? Yeah. So it's a big deal. Role tailoring was like a core promise of Business Central, NAV success for many of the years. We have a belief that you can go with a modern ERP and role tailor and customize your user interface, what you can do, how does it look and feel, without any development involvement. Basically, power user, consultant can go ahead and do that. So everyone wins. Before we start talking about role tailoring, let's talk about role and what does the role means. So the colleague of mine built this fancy visualization for the directions. And the main idea about the role is that every user of a Business Central, which is a role-tailored ERP system, has a role. It's not just a fluffy definition for us. It's a concept or semantic which we are bringing to this release across all our stack and platform. So users has roles. Roles decide what they can do, permissions, entitlements, functionality, look and feel, and so on and so forth. Users can share roles. We ship some of the roles out of the box as a templates. We can never match the real world to some extent. And the user can go ahead and role tailor their roles for what they truly need. And in a Business Central, the role is represented in this way. You can create a role. In the old day, we call it profile. It has a name, description, it has a purpose. It has your initial home screen where you start to work with the Business Central, and so on and so forth. There's a big change to user interface. If you're the user and you go to the Business Central, we'll talk consistently about roles. Like in this example, in the previous version, you go ahead and change your role center. Now you'll change your role. If you don't have any role assigned and you try to log into the system, we will default to your new role, which is part of our system application module. So role become like a very strong concept across the system. We use only profiles across some administrative pages and in some things which users will hopefully never see in their lives. All right, let's take a look a little bit about roles and role explorers. I need to press a button. If you take a look on a right for you, left for me, we have a small button called Start Exploring Your Business Central Functionality for Your Role. Again, I'm a user, I have a given role. I can go ahead, click it, and see what's available for me in a glimpse. So here's all functionality predefined so far as my role definition to myself. I can do different things. I'm a business manager. I have some actions, reports, which I can go ahead and use. I can also go ahead and explore what Business Central more allow me to do. So in this case, I have a number of roles which is configured for me, and I can go ahead and explore them and see, I'm in a pre-sales pitch. Where is my skip lot inspection? Where is my warehousing? Where is my financial reports? So in this case, I can go ahead and start looking for them. Okay, Business Central can do this, Business Central can do that, and so on and so forth. This data comes from role definitions. So if I'll use our most used key short and shortcut from our telemetry, Alt-Q, if I'll go into the roles list page and try to make it bigger, it was a joke, it's kind of already well enough for me, I can see a list of roles in my system. I can see all enabled. I can disable some of them if I don't want them to be used anymore. I can see all roles which is promoted to this map of the system, as Horina said in the keynote. So I can go ahead and explore them as a user of the system. You can see where they're coming from. In this case, we are shipping number of roles as a part of basic application, you can go ahead and ship more roles as a part of your extensions. Now, if I'm an ISV, I usually want to bring my brand. I have a brand, it's my identity. I want to call my action so everyone knows it's my ISV action, to click. So what you can guys do now, if you're in a pre-sale situation, for example, those people care less about warehousing. Don't even bother them with that. You can add your roles with your actions, with your brand, and then your users, when they'll go to the Role Explorer, once it's refreshed, I don't see warehousing anymore, and you can bring your all roles. So you can have control dynamically right now, the menu, if you will, what user can see. You can depromote roles or functionality or departments overview of a product which you not care about, and you can bring your own with your own brand. Now I need to press no. Yes. One again. Why did we build Role Explorer this way? First question, we had a department, we had a menu suite, it worked great, we know them, we love them. Why do something different? Does Microsoft have nothing more to do? If you step back from how NAV work, just step back from your experience, and think about any ERP system in the market. As a user, when I log onto the system, I have some basic expectation about data grouping. I probably expect to see data around money, account receivable, account payable, banking. I probably want to see something about people, vendors, customers. I want to look for reports. Where's my financial reports? Where's my administrative tasks, and so on and so forth. So when we start thinking about this grouping, and this is grouping present in any ERP product, what we could do something as we did in the past. Basically, take all the action application, make a copy of them, try to tag them, try to categorize them, to build kind of data composition, if you will, which will make sense for the user to experience the product. Or we could just say, it's a simple product, we have a number of roles, the role cover what the user can do, so the superset of roles can give me everything Business Center can offer. So we decided to go that way. We use our role definitions as a way to feed the data, to build your overview. You can bring your own with your extensions. You can depromote or hide the ones you don't like. And that's how a new menu definition works with the Business Central. We try to keep things simple. As a user, I can explore the product. Some roles come from a base app, some roles will come from ISV solution. Some of the roles you can create yourself, and we'll see it in a minute as a consultants. And then you can also decide which one is not relevant for users to even explore. Every time I want to find something, I'm going for search. Our telemetry showcase, if there is one shortcut our audience know, is how to search stuff. But the truth is, sometimes you don't know what to search for. It was called like bank reconciliation something. So there's like a deep desire, which when I don't know what I'm looking for, let me explore. So that's why we built Role Explorer as well. So we have this nice, and I can show you a cool trick with the Surface Cine. It's like a nice, have you seen it? I can do it again. There's like a nice label. If you didn't know what you find for, try exploring. And if you click this link, we'll give you the Role Explorer so you can find for stuff which you wasn't be able to find with your search, which is a good deal for everyone. Now let's talk about role tailoring. Role tailoring. I'm a consultant. I'm on a phone with a Tomas. I'm on the Skype on a Tomas. I'm on the Teams with a Tomas. I'm on a Google Hangouts with a Tomas. And Tomas asked me to help him to configure his ERP system because those roles definitions we built out of the box doesn't have much sense for him. I have a good news for you, Tomas. I don't need to come back to him 3 months later because I identify a developer who can make this modification. I just say, sure, buddy, we'll find a good time. We're on a phone. Let's take a look. So, Tomas, we're going to create a new role for you. I'm just using keyboard and mouse. can use the shortcuts. I'm going to the list page where we have a list of roles, and I'm going to hit plus button. This plus button was never available in our SaaS version since we released the product 2 years ago. We're going to create a new profile for Tomas. We're going to call it Tomas. It's a good name for a Tomas. It's also Tomas as well. You can select which role center will be starting point, so to speak. We'll use the default one. And that's really it. Now I'm going to press Customize Pages button. Horina showed you this in the morning, but it's a true magic which is happening now. I'm running a live system with a live data, and I start looking at that from my eyes from that role. So now I'm a Tomas. No. Tomas, would you like to see that action on your screen?
No.
No.
Okay.
Tomas, does this scene means anything to you? No. Okay. And so on and so forth. So I can use the whole power of personalization tools with the same look and feel to go ahead and customize what he wants me to do. It's not just an action moving around, just to be clear. It's not only about role center. So Tomas uses items a lot. At least he's supposed to use items a lot. So he can go ahead and customize every single page. He don't like especially these fields. You can go ahead to grid and control your fast entry, rearrange order, fix sizes, wherever you guys want. You really role tailor your look and feel to what you want. On top of that, you can go ahead and maybe create more views. I want to filter list by quantity. So basically, we'll say, we want to create a filter from all products which has some on hand available, and we are going to save this query with whatever name we can save it. So what I just did is not just you hire show elements, but you create a views and any power what product allow you to do, and everything right now is done for Tomas. We're looking through his eyes on the system, and when I'm done, I'm just saying, I'm done. Now, what I can do, or Tomas can do, he can send an email to his colleague Horina, say, Horina, I just sit down with this consultant on the phone. He created a profile for me which is called Tomas. Please log on with this profile through my eyes because they share the same role and see if anything is missing. Or maybe we need to role tailor more so our role is more successful or whatever I need to. And Horina saying it looks pretty cool or it looks decent. And maybe she say, no, that thing doesn't make sense to me, please get rid of them. Or please add, or change the color, put some emojis there. That's the point. So what just has happened? I look on a Business Central, which has a lot of extension coming from App Source and our basic application. On top of that, I use a tools, no coding, only hands, and this beautiful device, to go ahead and customize our role tailor for my given role, how my user interface looks and feels. On top of that, Tomas, tomorrow, day after, week after, can go ahead and personalize even further how does that role definition look uniquely for him as well. And so if you will, we have these 3 layers. We have a first layer where you can build your extensions. You can use our designer tools with exactly the same experience. Exactly the same experience, look and feel on production system. You drag and drop, and you build your experience. On top of that, you use exactly the same experience to configure role definition. And on top of that, use exactly the same experience to personalize your product. Same tools, consistent way of doing things, which is very nice. Now, how does it can ever work? How can you explain to users where these things are coming from now? Because we're so flexible to some extent. I like to think about it as this picture. So let's imagine we are loading a page, like every page from application. The first thing we do is like a Lego blocks. We put in some bricks which come from your extensions and from base app, how that page looks like. On top of those bricks, we're trying to put in bricks which come, what is the specific changes for that given role, which is the one which user is logged on to. Every user has a role. We enforce it with this release. If you don't have a role, there is no way you can log on to the system. Or if you don't have a role, we will assign to you one role, default role, which allow you to get in. And on top of that, we'll also project your personal personalizations, and that's how your page look like and how everything come together. Now we're doing some quiz time. There's a lot of engineers in this audience, very smart, intelligent people. So let me ask you a question. What will happen? I provide an extension for Tomas. This extension have an action, or has an action, which hide an action from a base app. So we had a base app, and my extension hides some elements, because I thought he don't really need to do that. But then Tomas, for his role, found that action and showed action again. And because the changes are applied from down to up, he can see this action now. So what will happen if I will uninstall my extension? Again, you had a brick, and you have dependency on this brick with your personalization or role tailoring, and then you remove your extension. What will happen when Tomas will try to log on to the system? How would his page look like? Come on, people, it's a good question. It will fail? Nothing will change. Why would nothing will change? You said, maybe nothing will change. Do you have more suggestions? Action is gone. Yes, action is gone. So the way how it works is very simple. Oh, not simple, but this is how it works. We have a concept of soft dependencies to make sure that Tomas can always log on, no matter what's happening with all this extension like beneath him. You'll have your upgrade cycles. You have dependency on IC's extensions. They will change their versions. Things will change. So the way how we can make sure our system is flexible but not fragile, we do the following. We try to load a page. We're trying to put a brick. If this brick doesn't exist, we don't do that. Now we go to the next layer. This brick, this change personalization, had a dependency on the level down. It's not there, so we don't do that. So if extension is gone and you took configuration dependency or that change, it will disappear. If you will bring your extension tomorrow, it will appear again. Because when we're going to resolve our levels, you'll be able to understand it there, and we're going to show it to you. So we use this principle of soft dependency to make sure your personalization and configuration will be always applied as long as their core dependencies are still present. So it's not like we're going to say, Tomas, you cannot log on because there is some configuration which comes from dependency and those extensions are installed, so please come back tomorrow. Nothing like that. Now we're coming to very, very excited stuff, which is like true pure magic. At least we believe so. When we move from in our journey from a Windows client to modern clients, and modern clients primarily mean modern browsers. I'm using Edge, we're using Chrome, Firefox, wherever we will. There was many things which was no-brainers. I want to have application shortcuts. Haha, we just go ahead and build that. It's a very straightforward thing. The role tailoring was the biggest issue for us because it's it was very hard to understand how we can bring role tailoring capability in modern clients. It was a true challenge. So let me tell you how it works. So I'm a consultant. I'm sit down with Tomas. I'm using my mouse, and I'm go ahead and customize my UI. Tomas, tell me, when I'm hiding an action, or when I'm moving an action, do you think we're capturing somewhere this action is moved 5 pixels right or left? What was that? You know the answer.
I know the answer.
We don't do that. So what's happening behind the scene, every time I move my mouse and I make a change in my user interface, there is a small smart creature in the cloud, development creature. This creature observes me what I do and thinks, how can I express that change if I were a developer? So every time I move a mouse in my UI, we're going to represent your change as a structured L code. We're going to compile it. We're going to store it on our cloud service and an extension. We're going to return you the result with the speed of light, or with the lightning speed, depends how you see it. And you continue doing that. Okay, I'll repeat it again. Every time user go to the role tailoring mode, personalization mode, or configuration mode with the designer, for every change you do with the mouses, we are going to generate IL code behind the scene, which should represent your change, stored on an extension, and that's how it works behind the scene. Which is amazing and unbelievable because those development creatures do not exist, and there is no like compiler or Visual Studio behind the scene. As a main result of this design, it also means I can go ahead and download those changes. I can go ahead and build them and use for my own projects, for my own needs. I can go ahead and deploy them for another environments. I'm using this magic scene again. So yeah, Tomas telling me we need to move on. So our user uses UI to customize his stuff. We're going to compile, create IL, bring him back his results. Developers can also download all the changes as IL code and publish them wherever they want. We have like this digital loop cycle if James Phillips will be there. All right, let's move on with the demo, how it works. So I'm going back to my roles list page, and I have a small button called Export User Created Profiles. I just created a role for Tomas. It's my IP. I can go ahead and do that. If I'll do it, it will create me a zip file. If I open a zip file, I'll see a lot of IL code here. So here's the new profile I created for Tomas. It's a profile, Tomas. It has some configurations. So I just copy it here for our convenience, and I'll put it to my IL code. I'm running it in a light mode because you can see it. Otherwise, it will be a dark mode. Maybe just a fashion these days. Okay, never mind. We'll do it like this. Tomas, how can I rename a file?
In the side panel? In the side panel, right-click, rename.
Come here and help me with that. No, I'm fine. So here's the changes which we just download from our cloud instance. I just copy them. It's exactly the same intent. So profile is an IL concept now. To create a profile, it has name, it has a description, and so on and so forth. It has a list of customization which come with this profile. You can customize every single page. Here's a simple example of customization where you just hide some fields or modify them. But you can also generate views. So it's not just you moving elements around, but every change you do, which will generate an IL code, will give you capabilities to download them, to download it. So now you can go here, type wherever you want, make any modification and many changes. So what I could also do now, as a result of this design, I can go ahead, press Ctrl-Shift-P. So Vincent showed you today debugging without publishing. I'll show you publishing without debugging. You basically just go ahead and press this one. And what's happening now, I'm taking those changes, which I just did with the Tomas, and I upload to my cloud instance. We had a lot of feedback like, with the Visual Studio Code, we don't have a designer. It's very hard to make code reviews. I don't see my properties. I don't know which one to use. You can go ahead and use those tools to build your code skeletons very, very fast. Go ahead to the product, hit configuration mode, create your pages, align stuff, move around, create a filtering, and it will generate for you your project, which you can use for your extensions, for your work going forward. So when my extension is applied and published to my cloud instance, so I'm going back to my list of roles. Yeah, and somewhere here we have a Tomas. Well, that's not the Tomas. That's one we created. And the way how you can see it, you can see what is the source one. here is the source file which comes from my extension. Here's my role I just created, so I can go ahead, just change my role and see how that looks like. And select that one if I wish. If you are not sure what is a recent experience, late experience, just look on the icon. So in the product you all know and love, we had the definition of XML file. So every time you make role profile customization, we had some XML file which represents a change. It was a great stuff. It was XML schema. Client parse it, apply some magic. But outside of that context, it was absolutely useless artifact. It was not part of our configuration model, not part of our customization model. It was very, very hard to use, and that's why we couldn't bring it to the cloud. In the new world, it's IL running behind the scene. It's very hard for me to understand your emotions, but it's a pretty serious and cool stuff, ladies and gentlemen. It is. You have cloud-ready ERP system with a full role tailoring capabilities. Try a look on the market who can also do that. With the same extension model, with the code extension behind the scene, so it's express once. As of now, we don't give you any way to import those profiles as a user interface. You can deploy extension. We will fix it shortly. And as a result of this fundamental change, when you're going to upgrade, or if you're going to upgrade or migrate, wherever you will, to fall release version, we are not bringing your personalization and one configuration with you. We will migrate your profiles, but that assets we are not bringing with you yet. Okay. Profiles are IL code, use them, just works great. Page customization is IL code, use them, works great. If you use this way of building your IC solution, you don't need to write any upgrade code, everything's very nice. Not sure why I even show you that. As Baxi told you today, we had a lot of refactoring from system application, and we also revisited how profiles are stored. Profiles are not a data anymore. It's not a records in a database. It's a true IL objects. However, we still maintain some tables as a virtual representation, so you can still write your code and it will compile it and everything like that. So we're not really breaking anything from this point of view. Call for action. Use role, explore, and provide feedback. If you're on your pre-sale demo, showcase how people can role tailoring your ERP. Get up to date what you can do. I just show you like 3-4 actions, you can do hundreds. And finally, we kind of empower consultants and power users to do a lot of stuff without having development costs. So for you as a partner, you can say about your new revenue model, consultant hours, billable hours, as I did with Tomas on the phone. I can go ahead and enable him very quickly without finding development resources and for those small projects and so on and so forth. And with that, we're going to talk how can you work smarter as a client or as a user with Business Central.
Thank you, Ievgenii, for a very in-depth overview for the new role story in our Modern Clients product. So what I want to talk about is another area of big investment for us in Modern Clients, and it's about user productivity and how user can work smarter with Modern Clients. And without further ado, I want to jump to the demos because we have a lot of exciting stuff to show, and we'll dive deep into the slides and explain a bit more technical terms afterwards. So I'll just switch to my demo tenant. And working with lists is something which is bread and butter for any business software. And other thing really important when working with lists is being able to adjust the list to fit your data, so you are able to scan really quickly through the data and find what you're looking for. And as Horina showed in the keynote, now we have an ability to adjust column width in product, but I don't know if many of you know that we actually had this feature before. It was shipped as one of the first features with personalization mode. But we received a lot of feedback that it was very hard to find that feature because it was in a special mode you needed to enter. And it was a very unintuitive interaction to do. when you're looking at modern business software or other Microsoft products, you expect that you will be able to adjust the column width just by dragging next to the column border. And that's exactly what we did now. But to achieve that, we actually had to solve quite interesting and complicated engineering problems. Because behind the scenes, it's still personalization. As Ievgenii said, there's still tiny people writing AL code every time you drag anything in the UI, or not.
Yeah,
So,
it does.
yeah. So what we needed to do, we actually needed to enter personalization mode as quickly as we can without interrupting user, do his change, and then close the personalization mode again. So that was quite an interesting challenge, but we really were excited when we managed to achieve it, and we're getting a lot of positive feedback from users because that's exactly what they expect. They just expect that it's just going to work. They don't care how it's implemented. The complexity is on us. And that's another reason why it's so amazing to work on productivity for modern clients, because any improvement we do, it multiplies in work hours our customers can save by not entering personalization mode every time they want to adjust a column, for example. When working with lists, another really important thing is being able to filter your data. And we have been working on advanced filtering capabilities in at least 3 major releases. We have introduced advanced filter pane, we have introduced filtering. This spring we have reimagined the views concept. We made views follow the page, so it's first-class AL concept. So whenever you open the page, the views always follows the page. And this release in October, we also finally have to offer the full CRUD experience for views. So if I'm a user and I want to create a view, I start with all view, and I start adding my filters. For example, let's say quantity on hand is greater than 0, and let's say I also want costing method to be selected on a couple of options. And this is a tiny thing, which you can see here. We also improved the multi-option control on the modern clients. So now it's a lot more intuitive, and it also supports a lot of common tiny keyboard interactions you are used to, so you can feel very productive when creating your filters. So when I'm done with my filtering, now we have a new icon here, which says save this view as, because all is basically the base page. So now I can create my view, which contains my filters, and it's specific to me. So it's actually creating a view in my personalization layer just for me, and this view helps me to customize the application while I'm working. And again, this is the second instance of where we don't enter personalization mode to do some personalization, because since we had the backbone to achieve this functionality, we started noticing that we could achieve a lot more amazing interactions by employing this architecture improvements we did. So we applied it to views. The same happens if I decide to rename the view. So let's say I no longer want it to be my view. It's going to be my view 2, very creative naming. And then since it's personalization and I'm the only one who owns and sees this view, I can also at any point decide to remove the view. And it's just gone immediately without any interruption on my side. Another thing which we did when we reimagined the views, we thought, what can we do further? Now we have first-class AL concept view under a page. We discussed a lot. Another thing which really helps users to achieve their tasks so that they can do their filtering. But what about the grid complexity? Some of the basic pages have a lot of columns. Of course, you can do personalization and adjust the base page, but at the same time, maybe it doesn't fit you all the time. Maybe in some use cases, you want to see certain amount of columns with certain with some filtering, and other cases with different one. So what we introduced was the shared layout property, which basically decides if the view columns in a grid going to follow the base page, or you can design completely custom definition of those columns. So I already pre-published an extension with a view, which has those all new capabilities enabled. And as you can see, I see a lot less columns. I also have custom ordering on description. I have my filters, of course. I also have my freeze pane set on description, and description column is also wider. So I applied a bunch of new personalization inside of this view. And if I switch back to all, you'll see that it goes back to this full richness of this page as the developer intended initially. So this is a really powerful concept. While we've been working on advanced filtering capabilities, we also realized that we can use exactly the same concept for report request pages as well. So in request report pages, you get exactly the same filtering capabilities. So user is no longer limited to the filter lines developer decided, like in a filter builder. Now user can dynamically add filters and adjust the query before he runs the filter. And the same functionality is also now enabled in XML ports, which, by the way, is the first release where modern client supports XML ports as well. So that's about views. Now I would like to cover a bit more in depth about shared layout. Shared layout, I think, is best explained in a code snippet. I think code snippet speaks 1,000 words. Because here we can see all the things which are unique to the shared layout false view. This is a custom layout. And you can do all the same modifications you can do in personalization, in design mode, and role customization mode. You are able to modify the width, for example, of description column. You are able to modify the freeze column on the repeater. You are able to modify the visibility of the columns. You are able to modify the ordering of the columns. All the code you usually write for page extensions can also be applied in this layout for the grid, for now. So this is a pretty powerful concept because it allows you to create really customized role-tailored experiences on top of the pages you already have and ship them with your solutions if you choose so. So now I would like to show another demo. Now I would like to show how you can be even more productive. So I'm back at item list. And in item list, let's now expand the fact box pane. And this is another thing which you have never seen before in a cloud environment. We didn't have links and notes parts enabled in cloud solution. Now they are fully enabled in cloud. And we also took the extra effort to also make this experience a little bit modern. So now you can see that we have two tabs. And first tab, details tab, represents all the parts defined by developer. And we have a special attachments part tab where you can see the system links and notes parts. And we also have a counter indicating if there is any links and notes and how many there are. So user knows if there is something to look there for. And as well, as you can see here, since we are developers, we like computers, and this was just an example of a multi-line rendering improvement where nodes are actually now a lot better represented when text is multi-lined. So that's pretty cool. But what about if I'm working this list and I'm opening a lot of items? I open in one item, I have one card. I, of course, could edit data, I could switch records, or I could close the page and open the page again. But this is a pretty hindered experience. So what if instead I just use the new multitasking capability to pop this page out and do side-by-side editing instead. And I can repeat this as many times as I want. And this really nicely snaps into very native browser behavior of just opening new tabs, new windows. You are in the control how you want to work. That is the main point. You should be the owner of the experience, and you should be able to tailor it to best fit your usage patterns. And as Horina showed, if I edit data on any of these cards, they will actually be the data changes will be represented back in the list. So it's user always gets a consistent overview of his data. So let's dive in and see how this works. But there's one thing I want to mention before we do that. You probably noticed that there was probably not a single session timeout in the demos, at least first day. I hope the second day will be the same. But one thing we did when we looked at the telemetry, we realized that people are interrupted a lot by this. Session timeout appears every time you go for a coffee, you come back, you're interrupted. You try to do something, session timed out. So we looked at the telemetry and we started increasing, we did an experiment, we started increasing the session timeout and we kept increasing it until we reached 90% improvement. That meant that people were seeing session timeout dialog 90% of the time less. That magic number turned out to be 2 hours. That's how long the session should last. So now the default value in cloud is 2 hours. So hopefully we'll never be interrupted by session timeout, or at least only 10% of the time. That's quite a lot. On premises, you are still in the control of this value, as you have always been. The default is 20 minutes, but you can adjust it to whatever value fits your usage scenarios. So let's dive in back to multitasking. And actually, it has two parts. The part I didn't cover was the other type of dialogue, which was really annoying to our users. That was, there's a dialogue open in another window, and you cannot proceed. That was the really annoying blocking dialogue. So what we do now, every time user opens a new browser tab, we actually give them a new session. So those sessions are separate, and whatever modal window is open in one of those tabs will not prevent you from working in another tab. So that's a really awesome productivity booster. Now the pop-out window works slightly differently. Pop-out window, since we want to achieve instant data synchronization, is actually reusing the same session and is popping out tiny client windows which are reusing the same session, and they're synchronizing back data between each other. And you could say that we could still run into modality exception as we did previously with the multi-tabs, but we actually have a lot nicer way to handle it, and user will be notified that there's a modal dialog open in any of these windows, and there will be a nice message informing him that he needs to take action. So that's a lot better experience than just breaking user and just even not explaining how he can recover. Another really awesome thing we did was uninterrupted data entry. When working with lists, the next natural thing you do, you edit the list. You enter some data, you create new entries in the list. And this was quite a big challenge. Because naturally, how Business Central works is that user keystrokes are ignored while onValidate trigger is running. Because, of course, you need to be done with your AL logic to accept new input from the user. Also, user is confused because sometimes his keystrokes are lost. Because system enters busy mode, but he kind of thought that he can still type, and now his keystrokes are lost, and user is in this confused state. And eventually, user learns this behavior, and he goes into this forced workflow of typing, tabbing, waiting, and then typing again. But this is really bad habit to have. It doesn't make you productive. It just makes you stop every time you want to type just to wait for the AL code to finish running. And in Windows Client, this challenge was kind of mitigated by the Windows Form runtime, because every keystroke would be buffered in the operating system, and operating system would not proceed, or Windows Form runtime would not proceed until it could actually process the next change. So that was kind of mitigated. But in in modern clients, web is inherently asynchronous. So we needed to completely reimagine the solution for this problem. We needed to create completely new interaction pipeline to handle user input so we can process it when we can, so it's never lost. So imagine I have sales line, and user is selecting item type. So we put the item type keystroke. Well, user types in item type because he's productivity user, so he doesn't need to use selection. He's so good at using the system, so he remembers the item type and number by name. So he enters item type. Item type keystrokes are put in the queue. He selects, he types in name. It's again put in the queue. And once system becomes idle, that means users stop typing. We actually push all the changes to the web server, and then they get applied in order. So that's pretty amazing, because this allows user to keep typing as fast as he wants, and the keystrokes are never lost. System catches up once AL is finished processing the user input. There's, so once, no, yes, fine.
In which scenario will have the biggest benefit of this feature? Because people still saying, like, why are we talking about it for 10 minutes?
Well, the cool thing about this is that you don't need to do anything to uptick this. This will be by default enabled in all of the grids. There's a small caveat though. There's still one blocker which will trip up the user, and that's dynamic editability. If you have dynamically editable fields, we will still need to stop and wait for that field to become editable again for user to be able to type. So that's something you should be aware of, and you should try to design your solutions in a way that either you are aware of this trade-off or you avoid dynamic editability so your users can type uninterruptedly.
So if I'm in South Africa on a low connection, just slow 3G, I can type through the line as fast as I can. System will just allow me to do that without stopping every single field and catch up initially. So my accounters can be super productive without saying, oh, that web scene feels slow, isn't it?
Exactly right. And another thing which trips you up when you are heads down keyboard user is action invocation, because you need to stop, find the action bar, expand the right group, click the right action. So we fixed that. We have brought back application shortcut support to modern clients. Now modern clients reads the shortcut key property from AL, and all the keyboard bindings are applied. So again, no change from your side. You just need to be aware of our new system keyboard shortcuts and also some of the native browser keyboard shortcuts so you don't collide with them. So that's something to take into account. And also, as usually, we introduced new system keyboard shortcuts in this release, and we updated our keyboard map so you can find all the keyboard shortcuts, and I highlighted the ones which are new. We'll share the slides. It's fine, you don't need to take a photo. And lastly, one action item here would be to check out our new productivity cheat sheet, which includes a lot of useful insights, how you can be smarter and work faster with modern clients. So Ievgenii, let's talk about developing for modern clients.
Wow, we have like half an hour left, and we just have a lot of content to show you guys. So we'll go a little bit faster. The second thing which people hate after their keystroke close was the need to wait. You come to your office, you open your desk, you open your email, your Business Central, and you just wait and wait while the pages are loaded. You take a coffee, you call your wife, look around, and it's still loading, and you say, what am I doing here? And the reason that in business, in ERP systems, sometimes you need to wait. We might need to run very complicated calculations. Like you want to calculate totals, and if you are, and today, or in an NAV or BC until it's released, you need to wait for that. You might need to get data from another system outside of Business Central. You have a lot of, it's a very connected world these days, so in a cloud. All the API calls to retrieve data, they may be non-reliable, can take ages, and again, UI is blocked, and user just wait and wait and wait, and no one likes that. And even if you don't wait today, if the data composition grows, you might wait tomorrow, and no one likes that. To address that challenge, we come up with a new paradigm. It's not a new paradigm, it's a known paradigm, but it's a new paradigm for BC community. Basically, how to wait less and do more, and run UI asynchronously. Before we do that, let's just see how it works. So I need your attention right now. Let's see if you can all count. So I'm going to open a customer card. Thank you, Tomas. I'm going to open a customer card, and I need your attention on this area of the screen where my mouse is. And we'll do it a couple of times, so you'll see a difference. Look on these fields. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, 4. Now let's look again. So I'm opening just page UI, and then I have some elements which need to load, and it takes some time. Page is fully operational. I can go ahead and explore it. And then there is some data calculation which will appear because it takes 9 seconds to calculate them. One more time. I open a page. It takes 2 seconds to open a page. Everything beyond 2 seconds is great. Everything more than 2 seconds, user will feel it's slow very much. I'm opening a page. On this page, I have some heavy calculation which is happening behind those fields. Don't look on those labels. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now we get results. Half a year ago, or in a Windows client, I will need to wait all this time before it can even be loaded. Now, let's think it will take half an hour to calculate them. How would it feel? That will be my story from my morning when I come to the office. So in the modern clients today, you can run the calculations. Yeah, this is just an example for fields, but for every you want to calculate that stuff somewhere else, and then bring results to my user interface, and it'll just refresh immediately, no action from you. Yeah, so what just happened? We have a new concept called page background tasks, PBT, page background tasks. So here's a very simple flow which explains what just happened. We load a page, so we were here, right? The page has loaded. It took 2 seconds to do that, and then you can see results. And you can interact with it. Meanwhile, there was another processing which took another 8 seconds, and my handwriting is horrible. But these 8 seconds, we didn't wait for it. We just like figure out what you do. And when calculations are completed, we just UI hour refresh instantly. Yes, that's like in 2 words. In more than 2 words, we have a new concept about child sessions. So if I have a user interaction, I can, like a parent, I can create child sessions which are running in the background. Those child sessions will create a session for a Business Central or for NAV, do some calculations, and when ready, give me some results back. Today, they will go through the OpenCompany trigger, and if you have a lot of code there, those background calculations can be slow. So that's why I'm telling you about that. And we add a very small code snippet in a system to say, if you're running child sessions, don't run a lot of stuff. And then all good. And how does it work? Sorry, Thomas. He didn't look anything inappropriate, by the way. He was preparing for his next demo. All right. So I'm going to walk you through the hello world example. So I have a code unit. This code unit is a serious code unit. It just does some serious stuff. It has some parameters, and it basically sleeps for 8-10 seconds, and then it's saying, I'm done. It took me 8 seconds. That's the only thing it does. Imagine here you calculate your totals. Imagine here you run your BI query. Imagine here you call external services, or you retry to receive some data. At some point of time, you will be done. Then you have a small piece of code, and I hope you can see it big enough. On a given page, I'm saying, buddy, go ahead and do this work. Please call this code unit 5, put some parameters, and just execute the work, and just do that, and don't bother me while you're doing that. In this case, you just pass in the parameter, 8 seconds. That's exactly how long that one sleeps. At some point of time, you have a new trigger on your page saying, on page background task complete, which we're going to call, while calculations are done. You get your results back, and you refresh your UI. You don't need to run any current page update, nothing like that. We have a very advanced, modern WebSocket technologies, which we can just refresh your UI instantly, and you just don't feel that. If something went wrong, and it will go wrong in the connected world, if it's timeout, if we kill your session because it was expired, if your connection failed, if you have a deadlock, if you try to write our database, which you cannot do from those child sessions, you can handle those UI and say, sorry, it took longer, something went wrong, You can give some usability to the user, try again, right? But you don't, so you have some capabilities for error handling. And that's just fine. Summary. How to create page background task for application developer who knows ILCL. You do 3 simple things. You create a code unit who does work. Like in this case, you just summarize some values. You can do everything you want, but you cannot write to our database. Read, grade, but not write. Then you're saying, on a given page, please do the work. You put some parameters you can say. In this case, we can tell you, you have 1 second to do execution. You can limit how much do you give that process maximum amount of time to perform given task. You can say, if it takes more than 2 seconds, just don't bother it. When the stuff is done, you can say, on my page, call me when you complete it, give me results back, and you can bind to your variables. You can do whatever you want with the results. Show it to the user. And finally, optionally, if you want, not necessarily need to do it, you can say, if something went wrong, I want to override default system behavior and maybe provide some nice experience for my users, saying, please retry again. Now, here's the funny part. IL is still single-threaded, and our debugger still can support only 1 thread in a time. It's not like a .NET, you can connect to multiple threads. However, if you put your breakpoint to your code unit, which will be run in a child session, we will hit that. So it's a fully debuggable, supportable, it's just IL code, which just runs on the different threads in a very special conditions. Call for action, please make your extensions so people don't need to wait and do a little bit more with their time. Tomas.
Thank you, Ievgenii. So Ievgenii just showed how you can build really powerful user experiences using new AL paradigms. And I would like to do a similar thing for client add-ins. When we moved to web modern clients, we changed our technology stack. And the same way, we changed how client add-ins are developed. Previously, we were using Windows client. It was .NET based, so naturally, client add-ins were also .NET based. So we understand that it's a big technology shift. It was a big shift for us, and it will also take time for you to adopt it. But if you take one message from here, from this part of my presentation, if we know that it's hard to start, but there's a lot of promise. And if you don't have a preferred JavaScript library or preferred UI framework, just use what we're using. Because we're using these open source components in production for a really long time. And they work. So you can also use them and be confident that they will serve the purpose. And we're also seeing a lot of other Microsoft products using very similar stacks. So just proofs of the maturity of these libraries. So I'll just go quickly, what is our stack? So we're using TypeScript for scalable JavaScript development because TypeScript gives compiler time checks and prevents a lot of common mistakes at compile time. We're using React.js for rendering our UI components. We're using Sass for writing scalable style sheets. We're using Webpack for producing optimized client-side bundles. And lastly, we're using Microsoft UI Fabric, previously known as Office Fabric, as our UI component library. And the last I would like to spend a little bit more time on, because it's really awesome. It's a Microsoft library providing the basic primitive controls for creating any UI. It's based on React, so it's a really awesome open source collaboration where React.js is developed by Facebook, but we are building on top of it and also making our solution open source. It's used in a lot of Microsoft services and websites, so it's battle tested. I'm really sad that we are missing one icon there. It's Business Central, because Business Central is also running on UI Fabric. All the new controls we did after we changed our UI were most of the time based on Office Fabric, because it provides really awesome primitives, which are by default aligning with Microsoft styling guides, Fluent UI. They are built with accessibility in mind. They have all the keyboard shortcuts and interactions already there, and at the same time aligning with what Microsoft is offering to our customers. So no matter if you're using Office Online or using Business Central, you'll see that a lot of interactions and styling is common. And that's what we are striving for. And you, by using this library, also getting closer to it. Because while developing client add-ins, it's also important to follow some of the best practices. And Office Fabric helps with that a lot. First of all, it's a good idea to use similar styling patterns. That goes from colors to design elements or just design decisions. And we have a style guide for it. And on the bottom of the slide, there's a link. No worries, we'll share the slides so you can check it out, or you can just search it online. So we already have some best practices for you, how you should style your client add-ins. Because in the end, you don't want your user to open your client add-in and just be surprised of what appears after that. Because then user will think that he needs to learn how to use it again. Instead, he should feel very familiar and maybe not even notice that this is a client add-in. Everything should look the same, everything should interact the same, because that means zero learning curve for the user. Second thing is, be a good neighbor. JavaScript is a single-threaded environment. Whatever JavaScript you're using, executing, is going to take CPU time for the entire page. So by being good neighbor, you're contributing to good user experience. Because if you are loading CPU heavily, user will have a bad time. Third thing, and it's also a little bit of our design thinking, is to provide minimal useful experience first and complexity when needed. And this is best illustrated by an example. If you have, for example, an item card, and in the fact box you created a client add-in which loads a PDF document having all the usage instructions for that item, that can end up being quite a bad experience for the end user. Because every time user opens item card, for example, if the PDF is 20 megabytes big, that's how long user is going to wait to interact with item card. It's not a good experience. A lot better experience is to provide a queue saying that there's one available document to let user know that there is such document available, and user can click on the queue and see the full, for example, a full screen add-in showing that PDF document. That's a lot nicer experience because user decides when he wants to be slowed down and when he needs that information. So this is something to keep in mind. Lastly, I'd like to annotate another point. I think, and I'm pretty sure a lot of industry is also moving towards the same conclusion, that in the last, let's say, 5 years, the majority of innovation done in graphical user interface was in the web. It was not in any of other GUI programming frameworks. And web is becoming the de facto platform for user applications and business applications. So I would like to show some of the experiments we built to inspire you of what is coming next in the web, what kind of standards, standard bodies are working, and what will be soon available in browsers. So we get inspired and start thinking what kind of powerful user experiences you'll be building. So I'll jump back to my tenant, and we have a couple of extensions installed. So first thing we wanted to experiment with was video stream. So browser has the capability to take your video stream for your computer and basically get that stream of bits and display it. So we started with a video element, and it's kind of cool, right? I see my video. It could work like a mirror. It could be an add-in. But we didn't stop there. We added maybe 4 more lines of code and 1 open source library, which does image recognition. So what we did, so I have this awesome freebie cup I have here, and it turns out that this box has a barcode on the back of it, and it actually scans barcodes now, because it analyzes the video stream in the browser side and detects that it has a barcode in the stream.
Can I ask a question, Tomas?
Yeah.
Does it went to the cloud, Azure services, anything like that?
Not at all. This was all client-side. And this is using open APIs on the web. And this is really powerful because anyone can take these APIs, and these APIs are becoming more and more powerful over time. So this was a cool demo. But we wanted to go further. What about if I have a legacy system which generates a lot of files in a folder, and I would like to process these files and kind of send this data back to maybe AL to write it to some table. So the next experiment we built was using, I admit, very experimental API called File System API. What it allows me is to grant browser access to my local operating system folder. And in here I have test input folder. And I say, I allow this application to view my files. And I have 3 simple text files. I have NAV TechDays written in a text file. I have empty text file. And I have 2019. That's it. That could be some input generated by a legacy system in some proprietary file text format. So what I can do now is I can initiate action from a client add-in. Since I already granted access to that folder, I'm able to read all the contents from those files and concatenate this message, nav TechDays 2019. And that content goes all the way back to AL, and AL displays this message. So AL could do anything with that payload it received. So that's pretty cool. But I already have access to this folder, so I might as well add more content. And since I have persistent access while this browser tab is open, I can do this again. I just read new information which just came into that folder. So reading files is quite awesome. But I guess you would like to do it other way around too, right? So we try that as well. The API is a bit limited, but there's a reason why I created AL file which has no content. So press write, and what it will do, it will send a message from AL, because this is an application action, to the client add-in, and client add-in will try to find, because client add-in knows about all the files in my folder, it will try to find al.txt. It will request additional permissions to write to that file. I have to accept. And then AL message has been written to my local operating system folder file.
Is it like it's amazing, like back to your reactions? It's a tough crowd to entertain today. It's absolutely amazing. Yeah.
And I think the biggest point is,
yeah,
I'm not connected to any cloud services or anything. This is all happening in my local browser, in my local operating system, interacting with AL. So this is something to inspire you. So you start being more interested in web, start looking for what's new in the web, and start building awesome solutions for your customers.
Where is our clicker? Horina? Yes. Join us on stage. Mm-hmm. What's next for modern clients? Tell us. It also works. It's a very nice pen.
Oh.
Leave this legacy behind.
Yes. Mm-hmm. We just can't go back. Yeah. Okay, so Vincent showed us today in the keynote the roadmap for Business Central, and we also talked about what are the investment areas across the product. But now let's zoom in into the investment areas for the clients. So we definitely want to close the story around the data entry. Tomas has talked about some of the limitations we have regarding the dynamically editable fields. So we will be also trying to find a solution for that. Fast rendering of pages, definitely top of mind for us. Vincent has showed you the ghosting video. That is an experiment we are also looking into and hoping that we can have this available for April. Let's see if it's making it. Print. Print is another area. Every partner we have spoken, regarding, moving the on-premise customers to cloud, they all asked about print. Definitely, we are working on releasing a solution for that. Pages with complex layout. Same story here. A lot of feedback from you that there are improvements to be done. Hierarchical grid. We have support for hierarchical grid in web clients, but it's suboptimal. So we will also be covering that. We will continuing the story for the role customization and role explorer. There is a couple of features that we would like to have. For example, the importing of roles. Reporting, we were actually looking into how to simplify the request page experience. We know that it's very cumbersome. We have done some improvements in this release, introducing the filtering on request pages, but there are other areas to look at. No breaking changes. So Baxi has talked about no breaking changes in the keynote regarding application, and it's the same actually across the stack, goes for platform and clients. We are actually looking at how we can ship improvements to the user experience without disturbing the existing users from performing their daily tasks. We were looking at how to ship features in preview and make users be in control whether they want to use these features in preview or not. And finally, world-class service. Yes, that is also something top of mind. We are working on improving stability and resilience of the microservices that power today the web clients in cloud. So these are the areas that we have in our mind. And now, we want to show you some videos with some of the features that we're working on. So first of all, we talked about Role Explorer being, an elegant and interactive map of your customer's organization. And because Business Central has a lot of functionality from Microsoft and from you, it can be actually rather difficult to find information in the Role Explorer if you have a lot of content. So let's start a video. We plan to introduce Find. And here in the business, we are here in the Business Manager Role Center, but then let's zoom out of my role and let's search for vendors. And notice how the system quickly and smoothly shows me where are the areas where I find pages, reports, tasks, setup pages that are connected to the vendor's keyword. That is quite beautiful, huh? Yes. What else? The Role Explorer is coming soon to your region. So also another part we are looking into is to provide content for Role Explorer across different countries out of the box. We have countries where you can find Role Explorer today, that is US, Canada, DK and so on. And we will also be looking at other countries in the minor updates for our cloud solution. And we will be continuing to covering that in major releases. Another feature is related to hierarchical grid. As I said, we have support today in web client for that, but the experience is quite suboptimal. It doesn't really look as a tree, and the expand collapse actions are somewhere deep down the context menu, so user will probably never discover it. And we are basically introducing new changes to this experience. We are aligning actually the tree control with other products that are in Microsoft. We are promoting the expand all, collapse all actions, and also expanding and collapsing per root. And that's it so far. So
we have like 7 minutes left.
Mm-hmm.
7 minutes left. We have some T-shirts. Just go ahead and grab them, if you will. Questions? We start with the lady in the first row. No, I'll just give it to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have actually 2 questions. First, when user changes, customize the page or role, and there is an extension which is created in the background. Do we see it in our extension list somehow?
So for those of you who can leave just go like a beer waiting for you. For those who have a question, just stay. We'll be here all time. Yeah, so the question was, if I would personalize the role tailor, can I get that changes as extension? You cannot see this extension as extension in extension management page, but you can export them as a code. The reason why you cannot see this extension, we're still not sure what will happen if you just be able to delete it accidentally. So it's there, but you cannot really access it unless you export it from that export button. So it's there, it exists, but Microsoft has a special safeguarding around it for now.
So we see it now.
You don't see it in the list,
Okay.
but you can export all this code for this extension and then publish it as your own extension, then as your own IP for another instances.
Okay, thank you. And the second question, the feature when user can type without being interrupted, like if there is a slow connection or something, if there is an error in any of those fields, how will it work?
Yeah, great question.
So then error bubble will be displayed, and user interactions will be queued until user fixes the error, and then they will be reapplied.
But
Nice.
if you fix it fast, your error, we'll just proceed with that. So you go like this, fix again, go like this, and then move on. Within a row, not within multiple rows yet.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, actually.
There's plenty of questions.
Another question? Yes.
First of all, thank you for your session. I was wondering, can you write to temp in the page background task?
Can you write
Yes.
To temp.
to your database?
No, to temp. For example, and sometimes you write to SQL, sometimes you write to a temporary table.
I don't think so.
No? Okay.
Page background tasks are designed to be read-only.
So the reason why we not allow it to write to a database, because there's many cases where we can kill the session. On a server it's running as a thread with a low priority, it can time out. We need to have a consistent way we can stop that execution. That's why write to database is not available as of now.
But not really write in database, it's more write in the
I understand your question. I think the way how a server will treat your transaction, it will still think you are writing and will prohibit you doing that.
Okay.
But we can check that. Let's connect to LinkedIn and we'll just see.
Also, a good design pattern would be to also not do the same in API web services to any external services, because these sessions can be killed at any point. So they really have to be read-only across all the stack, no matter if it's Business Central or across the stack to other services as well.
If you look on our base app, you usually get inspiration. How can app take that capability? We have very limited uptake as for now, if you will. There is examples how we can make your fact boxes, run asynchronously queues, and so on and so forth. So we just introduced this capability. It's very functional, maybe not so much desirable yet. And
I think it has a lot of possibilities.
absolutely. So we love modern clients. You love them as well. Good start.
Okay, thank you.
Who was first?
Let's take
Yes, please.
from somewhere.
Okay.
You should.
Sorry, I have a short question about the design mode. So as we know, we only have the design function in the sandbox environment.
Yep.
So if we or our customer to deploy the customized design extension, so users or partners have to compile the source, because we only have to download source as ER file. So why Microsoft do not let user can download the app file, or it was already on some roadmap, because you want to change some UI settings for all of the user in their product environment.
I'm not sure. Sorry, I understand the question.
Are you asking if you can download the designer extension from the sandbox?
Yes, from sandbox to product environment.
So you can download the extension from the sandbox.
As app file.
Your question was, if I'll customize my system in a sandbox, role tailor for my users, I would like to take those changes in production environment right away like this, without redoing all that work again and again. Is that the question?
Yes.
From that, okay, great question. So for now, we don't have capability yet. Right now, I need to kind of download it as an extension and publish it again. The same with the personalization. I cannot just say, I customize my role heavily. Let me apply my changes for Tomas, or let me share those changes with Horina. I need to redo it again, which is kind of functional, but far away from being desirable. It's on our list to improve it, as you see in our roadmap. Absolutely. Troubleshoot personalization, move them around, make sure all the investments, you don't need to redo it again and again and again and again. Mm-hmm. No one like it, obviously. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Great question.
From there.
Yes?
First of all, thank you for the role customizations. It's great. But one question regarding this: if I hide an action or a tile, can I unhide it?
Great question. Aaron of us three can take this question. We'll start with Horina.
To unhide the tile?
Yeah.
Yes.
To bring it back? Yes. It should be possible, right?
No.
I mean,
No.
So currently,
unhide the tile.
You can hide. You cannot. It's very hard to unhide.
Okay.
You need
The
to click.
Okay. Yes.
the only thing we support currently, which you can undo by user action, is bringing back fields, which are defined on the page. Fact box parts, queues, role center parts. Right now, you cannot add them back. It's very top of our list because it is blocking user scenarios. Currently, only way to recover is to reset the personalization.
Yeah. Back to the point. We don't want you to waste your. If you just go to the situation, you want to roll back fast, you want to add stuff. Today is a little bit functional, but again, not desirable. It's a good comment. We are very, very aware about that.
Another question: when I hide an action and you delete it in the base app, then my extension still works, you said, but then it's not compilable. How do you resolve this in the background?
So it's a super great question. Back to this complicated scene, this creature on the server. When you're in your compiler with your dev tools, with your extensions, we had a very, how do you call them?
Dependencies are resolved strictly. When we at runtime, they are more flexible.
So runtime is hard, so to speak. When you're in that hour mode, the runtime is soft.
Okay.
So we allow to have those softness, otherwise it will be a very unflexible system and we couldn't really support that.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not something new. We also have that for personalization, because we introduced first personalization and that's also an extension.
Yep.
So that is also a soft dependencies to the PTs, to the actual extension and runtime layer.
Because if that situation will happen, without developer, we cannot resolve that. And how would you explain to the user you have ambiguous reference? I mean, you can't. So in a way, we have to make it soft for now and maybe figure out later if we need to support this case. Good question.
Regarding this unhiding, I mean, it should be fairly simple, right? Just to download the code, AL code, and remove the hiding part and republish it again. Then you have thing back.
Yes, through the AL code, yes, but not through the UI, right? So that is the part that we're missing.
Yeah.
So we are looking for
that was the confusion I had as well.
Yeah.
Yes. We are looking for two personas. We really, really would like to, I would never say eliminate, but make sure that the user, power user, decent user, can use the system and role tailor without any development involvement and remove all complexity from him, even resolve that case, right? Right now he's saying, if you go to DevTools, you know how to do it, but he or she wouldn't.
Yeah.
So we're really catering for a world where consultants are empowered as the end user, and in addition, as you as a developer can also do that. But for now, you're right, you need to understand how it works behind the scene and so on and so forth. But future is bright on that direction.
Can you catch?
Yeah, I see you there.
Yes, please.
There's one person there.
You can just tell it to us, we'll repeat loud.
You have the ability now to define and save views. I think it would be a good idea not only to save the sort of the view, but to have access to the index files of this table, because then you are more flexible in a combined sorting.
That's a good comment.
So, to comment on your comment, you would like also maybe to add indexes as a metadata, add more fields from a source table on UI, do much more than you can do today. And we also look in how we can empower you with that.
Yeah. However, this would be a feature, you know, for more advanced users, right, who are familiar with these concepts, right? Most users, they are not, right? Yeah.
Because in the moment we don't have any point where we can access to the index files in the sorting, and that's not good.
No.
Yeah.
You were very polite with that statement. It's not good. Yeah, it's not good.
Aside.
Oh.
With all these changes, if you're running on-premise and you don't customize the base code, or can you safely install the CUs without breaking anything?
Good point. So first of all, we never told you cannot run your modern clients on-premise. You can.
Right.
You can.
But I mean, in terms of doing all your extensions and customizations, I understand when there's a new wave, things might break, but within the wave, can you safely install the CUs?
So it is something that we aim, and we do not want to break users when, especially in cumulative updates, right? In general, the cumulative updates for Microsoft are kind of a bag of bug fixes primarily, and security, vulnerability updates, and so on. We're not shipping as many features as we would be shipping in a major update. And the goal for us right now, coming back to no breaking changes, is that yes, we do not want to break user in cumulative updates. And we are still defining the no breaking changes at different levels. At the application side, what this means, it means basically not breaking extensions, and also what it means from UI perspective, you know, adding column, removing column, you know, introducing new features. So definitely, yes, that is what we are aiming for.
In short, without breaking you in short, get cumulative updates. We also got a feedback. We don't have any visibility. What is inside? Like what is the features, security patches. So we'll also look in on that. We'll run your business as today, no disruption. Please stay with us.
Behind? Or
No, I think she wanted.
So we're like 5 minutes over. So if you guys need to go to the beer, just go. We'll stay here until the last question. Thank you for your attention today. It was a pleasure to have you here.